Let's get it started. I would like to invite Ryles from Overscale to be talking about NFTs that gamers love, delivering unprecedented value to users. So, Ryles, come to the stage, please. Take it away.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. I am honored to kick off today's series of talks. Now, there was a little bit of a change of plans because I didn't feel that my initial talk was going to deliver all the value that I felt I had to offer. So, joke's on you. I'm going to give you even more than you asked for. That's why this talk is called... This is literally how Web3 gaming has to happen to succeed, and it deserves lots of space in the event schedule, hence the long name. I forgive the event organizers for not actually devoting that much space to it. Now, my name is Ryles, and you may be wondering exactly what a Ryles is. You can just consider it the transcendent essence of yellow. More importantly, I'm the CEO of Overscale Studios. I am responsible for Draco Dice, which are cross-game non-fungible tokens, as well as the creative director for collectible NFT series Blockchain Heroes, among other things. And I'm here to talk to you today because gaming is on fire. In no entertainment medium have consumers lost more rights than in gaming. And this has become evident through the patterns that have emerged with live services and the increasing, shall we say, bad habits that have become prevalent in the gaming industry, especially things like cut content, generally deceptive practices towards consumers, etc. And these are three of the main issues that I want to highlight. Number one is that you own nothing. Even if you have games on Steam or Epic or, God forbid, you used to have games on Origin, you don't actually own the software. You only own a license to access the software. And that goes for mobile platforms as well. Problem number two is that your invested time is ephemeral. People who spend a lot of time in a single experience unlock for themselves very personal, very valuable to them experiences that are the result of the time and effort that they put into a game. Moreover, nobody likes watching a game die, and yet it's become a standard. We've gotten used to it. That's a huge issue. Number three is that you are entitled cattle. Now, what I'm referring to here is the unfortunate degree of animosity that exists between those who make games, those who talk about games, and those who actually play games. Now, I firmly believe that through Web3, we can solve all of these issues. But it should hurt, especially because you're ostensibly here, especially at the earliest talk of the day, because you are a bear market barbarian, you are a warrior, and you're here because you love this. So the question is, what about Web3 so far? We've been producing Web3 games for years, and we've seen hundreds of millions, possibly billions of dollars getting poured into play-to-earn, play and earn, play-to-own systems, and yet the reputation of Web3 gaming has only gone down over time. And this is why it's not working. Number one is that we have weird terminology. What the hell is an NFT? Non-fungible token. There's too many syllables. The word fun is literally infungible. There's nothing fun about saying that, okay? And when people see terms that are related to blockchain fly around from the perspective of just a consumer, they have no idea what's going on. Number two is that there's a lack of trust. A very loud, but hopefully a minority of consumers have generated this thought pattern where as soon as they see the word blockchain or Web3 or NFT in the marketing material for a game, boom, it's a scam. Why? Well, hey, if it wasn't a scam, why would they be using blockchain in the first place? They could just make a normal video game. Problem number three is the barrier to entry. There's too many steps that users have to take in order to get initiated, in order to begin engaging with the benefits that Web3 ostensibly provides them. That drives any user away. And then problem four is the prevalence of ulterior motives. Because of the investor-centric nature of work that takes place on blockchain, gaming has been a casualty of this as well. And oftentimes the money that goes into Web3 goes into it not out of a desire to provide any real benefits to users, but rather out of a desire to capitalize on the supposed demand. These next couple of slides are going to set the tone for everything. So customer service expert Robert Spector had this quote, and I just love it. Don't reinvent the wheel. Focus on winning one customer at a time. Be honest and sincere. Do what's right. There's nothing magical about this. You see, the #1 problem with Web3 game development so far is that Web3 developers and publishers are trying to compromise between what they know that users want and all of the fun, weird financial stuff. They want the play to earn and the play to own. And those things only exist as a result of marketing efforts. That's trying to communicate to users, you can make money off of this. But that's not the point. That's not supposed to be the point. And all that this has served to do, in some cases, is literally ruin people's lives. Now, of course, individual consumers are, of course, culpable and responsible for the decisions that they make. But at the same time, these products are sort of making these promises, delivering this fantasy that you can replace your day job by playing video games. Nobody should be buying into this anymore. This is the key that underlines everything else I'm going to tell you. Reach consumers where they are. Instead of making incremental change towards what you know consumers want, instead, you need to go directly to what they expect and what their desires are, not based on anything that's happening in Web 3, but based on what's succeeding in Web 2. Don't reinvent the wheel. There's nothing magical about this. I want to offer you a case study, a couple of case studies. The first one is Deep Rock Galactic. Can I get a show of hands if you've heard of or played Deep Rock Galactic? Cool. They have a 97% positive rating out of 165,000 reviews on Steam, which is phenomenal. That is a massive success. Developer Ghost Ship Games is a relatively small studio, and I believe that this is the only game that they've released under that name. But I believe that one of the reasons for why they've succeeded on the degree that they have is because they have curried massive goodwill with their users. So here's some ways that they've done that. Disclaimer. It's so easy for me to stand up here and tell you to do these things. It's a lot harder to actually put it into practice. Very aware of that, but you're already here because game dev is hard and Web3 makes it even more difficult. So you've got this sort of masochism that I respect. I'm here for it. First thing that they did is they exercised generosity. And they did this by offering free battle passes to everybody who plays the game. Literally everything in the battle pass is free. They monetized respectfully. And when I say monetizing respectfully, what I mean is that they didn't make offerings to players that players could feel were insulting. And you kind of know what I'm talking about intuitively. I don't have to go into Oblivion horse armor. This ties into the Battle Pass system that they released with Deep Rock Galactic, because if you ever missed rewards in the Deep Rock Galactic Battle Pass, all of the things that you missed would enter the pool of loot that could drop for you just by playing the game. No FOMO, no fear of missing out. Furthermore, all of the cash offerings that Deep Rock Galactic has are purely cosmetic. Everybody knows users generally don't like pay to win. And there's a little bit of a difference, I understand, between what desktop and mobile consumers expect. However, I'm also philosophically against the sort of pay-to-win approach. And number 3 is that Soul is mandatory. This is a big one. It doesn't matter if you're building on Web3 or not. This is something that can apply always. Players love to see that your heart is in it. And the way that you can show them that your heart is in it is by including details and functions, the purpose of which is clearly to enhance the experience that they're having for the sake of enhancing that experience. And with Deep Rock Galactic, one of those features is Rockin' Stone. It's just a salute that any player can suddenly prompt, where their character will raise their pickaxe high and offer a rallying cry that all the other players in the lobby can hear. And there's sort of an unspoken rule that when one person rocks and stones, all of the other players have to also. It's a lot of fun, but there's no reason for why that would get built into the game in the first place, except for the developers connecting directly to the users. That's heart and soul, and that's part of why there's so much goodwill between Ghost Ship Games and their users. Case study number 2. Warframe is a very divisive title. However, one of the things that I feel it's done well is it's offered maximal content access. So this is going a little bit deeper into one of the things I just talked about. Out of over 500,000 reviews on Steam, they have over 85% positive reviews. And one of the reasons for why that is because they don't lock off anything. I mean, they lock up just a little. But that's why I say that one of the things that they do well here is selective exclusivity. It's this idea that if you're going to offer something for cash to players, you can't offer very much of it without also ensuring that there are alternate methods of players earning those items. The main element of your loadout in Warframe is the titular Warframe. It's basically the character that you use to progress through a level. And they have a prime access system where they will offer for cash sort of an instant unlock of these prime frames that give you just a little bit of an upgrade. But if you don't want to spend cash, you can work pretty hard, you can farm pretty hard in order to unlock the pieces that are required to build it without spending any money. The delineation between this is only accessible by paying and this is technically accessible without paying if you're willing to work for it is huge, because there's a lot of players out there who love the grind, which is one of the reasons for why we see grinding as such a massively successful mechanic across the gaming universe. Point number 2 is that you guarantee low price point offers. The temptation to cater to whales is a huge problem in Web3 development because people know if you are spending money in Web3, you probably want to spend a lot of it. I mean, we see huge numbers flying left and right between monkey JPEGs and lands that doesn't even function in the form of a non-fungible token. But one of the things that connects to users is ensuring that they see that they can get something that's worthwhile for $1, $2, $3, $5. And offering that low price point makes it a lot easier for people to connect to the ecosystem that you're offering them. Emphasizing that you're offering these low price points communicates that. 3, and this is a big one, avoid speculation. If you're building on Web3, it's almost impossible not to have speculation. People will be interested in some assets on the grounds that they believe that somebody else is going to be more interested in them down the line. And that's okay. But you don't want to encourage speculation. My recommendation here is that you section off a small part of the NFT schema that you're using for your product and make that the sort of speculator bait. Make that the less accessible, the more scarce material that people are willing to throw around a lot of money for and play their little market game. But for the most part, what we're delivering to users, if we want to have that goodwill from earlier, is not the promise of playing a market game, but the promise of having more control and agency over the assets that they own, because they're supposed to truly own them. The concept of sunsetting a game is a tragic one. You know, nobody could have seen this coming before live services became a big deal. I saw this article that was written on gamesbrief.com in 2013, and there were 20 various industry experts, developers, journalists who were trying to answer this question: is there a good way to sunset a game? No, there's not. There's not a good way to sunset a game. It's always disappointing. Nobody wants to see it happen. But if we propose that users truly own their assets, they should also truly own their games. Now, I'm not telling you to keep the servers turned on forever. No game can do that. What I propose is sunset support. Early on in your production cycle, you plan for what you're going to do when the lights have to go out. Because one day, no matter what you do, you will have to turn the servers off, unless you have access to some sort of technology through decentralization that effectively ensures that it lives through means beyond your control. And here's how you do it. You be transparent with your users. If you're offering them a live service game, which you probably are because you're here about NFTs, your users need to know what to expect when the lights go out. And this is probably something that you share towards the end of the life cycle. When the writing's sort of on the wall, you let them know. You're not going to be able to just have matchmaking with everybody anymore. Maybe you have a peer-to-peer connection, so you still get that online competitive experience. Maybe the whole thing is just an offline version. and maybe that integration sort of goes away, but at least you still have the game that you've been investing so much time and money into. And then you do not compromise. There is so much fear, and I felt it myself as a Web3 developer, of what people are going to think if they feel like I'm responsible for decreasing the value of their assets. There's kind of a lot of unspoken no-nos, right? You stop making new supply, so you stop driving down the value of what I have. But that's not the point of a video game. And the idea that that should factor in, that should be part of your decision-making process, is a lie that's sort of been environmentally sold to us. The Web3 part of your Web3 game doesn't have to matter. The fact that your game is Web3 should not be part of your marketing material, because the only people that appeals to are people who are looking specifically for Web3 games, and those people are almost never themselves gamers. They're almost never the kind of people that you're building games for in the first place. So I just call that a matter of consumer friendliness. So this is a critical thing that we have to exercise in order to succeed with Web3. One is we have to abandon trends. Remember when I was saying instead of making incremental change towards what users actually want, we go straight to the user? This is part of that. I don't believe that the word NFT is ever going to become standard terminology. I don't think that in a situation where mass adoption has happened and we have 7 figures worth of people playing on Web3 games, no. 2 is that you have to gamify user education. You have to educate users no matter what because of the technological barriers between us and the benefits that we're trying to offer users with Web3 assets and games. But users love to be bribed. Users love to be bribed to learn. User education is hard, but especially in the mobile space, this is a wheel that's already been invented for you. If I ask you directly, what would you do when you need to teach a user something inside of a game that they probably haven't been introduced to before? You already know how to do it. And sometimes offering them currency for it, coins or gems or what have you, is the simplest answer. And number 3 is that you build with integrity. None of this is about you unless you're building what you're building because you want to play it yourself. If you are building something that you do not intend to play, you are a peddler. If you are building something that you do intend to play, you are a consumer. And that's the best possible position to be in as somebody who's building. Don't make Web3 games. Make games that support Web3. Well, thank you very much for honoring me with your presence, for being here for this talk. I stream multiple times a day. I actually stream video games, if you would believe it, at twitch.tv/Ryles Meta. And do we have time for questions?
Time for one quick question. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah, one over here.
Thank you for the great talk. I mostly agree what you said about the throughout the presentation, but the one curiosity about your first page of presentation, you talked about like there are 3 massive problems in the game industry, and this is the problem. None of the stuff you talked about seems to be addressing that issue. First of all, like second is that like the stuff that you talked about as a problem, such as the like players don't own the game, or they have license, as an example. That is not only for the game. Like every software is working that way. Why is game a specific problem with that? Is like the question I want to ask. And how do you think that you will be addressing it to let players to own the game through Web3?
So there's 2 parts to the answer, since there were 2 parts to the question. First, I would respectfully disagree with the material that I talked about being irrelevant to the 3 problems that I listed. For example, talking about how you don't truly own anything. I was definitely talking about treating games as though players can truly own them and offering that sort of ability. Sunset support is part of that approach. So if players are guaranteed the ability to continue playing a game after the game would otherwise go offline, that's like an unprecedented amount of ownership from the perspective of a service game. And then in terms of solving the licensing issue, End user license agreements are really prickly. I'm sorry, I'm going just a little bit over here. This is actually a huge question. And this is a problem that a lot of people are trying to solve right now because licenses seem to sort of infringe on the concept that you own something in the first place. Most of the time that you actually own something, there isn't a license attached. However, I firmly believe that it's possible to offer a version of a game after the lights have gone out that a license is not necessary for. No license, no privacy policy, no terms of service, because you're no longer offering a service, you're no longer collecting data from the user, and the situation has just dramatically changed. So that's how I would answer that question. Thank you all very much.